Welcome to the Undercovers podcast. I'm Ben along with Paul. Connor's out tonight, and we are back from an extended break. The plan was to definitely talk more training camp and preseason, but I was getting back from vacation like literally the day before training camp started, I think. So, yeah, it just I guess we're enjoying our summer too much, but
I know.
football is back. The
We back.
preseason just wrapped up. College football started this past week, so we got college football week 1 coming up with some great matchups, which we didn't really plan into tonight's show just because there's so much to talk about just between what happened in training camp and the preseason to obviously 53-man roster cuts tomorrow. So that was the main focus of tonight's show. But if we have a little extra time, maybe we'll
We can
talk some Arch Manning. Yeah. I mean, we could
Arch
do some
Manning.
game picks too. Like,
Oh yeah, we certainly can.
that's always fun. Like we usually like to do those. So since we don't have any NFL games to pick this week, there's a lot of good college games to pick.
Lots
so
of good
just
college
pick any of those week 1 matchups. I don't know how many games we normally pick.
We normally do 6, but
6. All right, I think there's 6 good games.
Oh yeah. There's plenty of good games this weekend.
All right, so we could do that, and then you could send the games to Connor since he's out tonight,
Perfect.
and he can do his picks. But just jumping right in, we got a lot to talk about tonight. There's a lot of football news today. It feels like a whirlwind, just with everything from the Trey Hendrickson signing to McLaurin. Like both those guys signed in one day, which was huge. We had a couple surprising roster cuts already, in my opinion, and a couple more interesting moves. But let's start off with our quick takes. And my quick take actually is about the Raiders. It's about will Jacoby Myers get traded or not, and who should trade for him, because he just requested a trade today. Obviously, they brought back Amari Cooper, where Amari Cooper finally signed. So for any Bills fans still wanting Amari Cooper, it is too late. He's going back to the Raiders where it all started. Well, Vegas this time, because technically they were still in Oakland when he was on the Raiders. Maybe he was in Vegas one year. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think he was on Oakland.
He was all of his time was in Oakland.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, you could fact check me on that if you want to. But either way, he's back to the Raiders. Jacoby Myers, he put up some good numbers last year, and the Raiders, they don't have a ton of weapons on offense, obviously. They have Brock Bowers, arguably the tight end 1 in the NFL. They drafted a couple rookies this year, and Jack Bash, Deontay Thornton, and they've picked a couple receivers the last couple of years as well. I believe Trey Tucker was one, and I think they have another receiver, another speed receiver, if I can recall. Either way, he's a big piece to that offense, obviously, in the passing game. And they're gonna want to be a run first team with Ashton Junti and Raheem Mostert in the backfield. But I mean, you got to think they got to figure out a way to sign Myers, because he, if I'm not mistaken, he had 1,000 yards last year. We know Geno likes to air it out. And if they are to trade him, I mean, there's some I don't think there's a ton of teams that really pop out, but we know Minnesota's been looking at receivers. I think the Patriots are a team. Ironically, he came from the Patriots, but they would have to pay him, and that's the reason he went to Vegas originally, because they didn't want to pay him. But they're a team that could probably use receiving help. Just thinking off the top of my head, I mean, there's a team in Buffalo, maybe. But I think as much as I want him, I don't think the Bills are going to pay him unless they trade Curtis Samuel, get rid of his money. They would have to pay him probably $15 million a year, but they're already paying Palmer and Samuel. I just don't see it. As much as I would like Jacoby Myers, I don't think it's realistic in Buffalo. Maybe Minnesota, though, like I mentioned. I could see the Browns maybe doing it, even though they already have help. Jerry Jeudy. They definitely could use some receiving help. Trying to think of other teams. Maybe Tennessee. They got a young quarterback. They don't really have a lot of weapons other than Calvin Ridley. I know they signed Cam Ward's guy and Restrepo as an undrafted free agent, but I don't have a lot of expectations for him.
team besides Tampa Bay in the NFC South.
Francisco. What if he? I mean, they're not Bay rivals anymore, but the former Bay rivalry between San Francisco and Oakland. What if he goes out to San Francisco? I know they
And
just
San
got Sky
Francisco needs a
Moore.
lot of help.
They do need help because right now it's because I think Jawan Jennings is still injured, if I'm not mistaken. Brandon Ayuk's not set to come back until at least week 6. So right now and another guy I really like, Jacob Cowling. I believe he's hurt as well. So it's like Sky Moore, Ricky Pearsall, and a bunch of Jags. Like I can't even name any more of those receivers. I mean, they signed
they have a bunch
Demarcus
of
Robinson, but he got suspended the first 3 weeks of the season. So I mean, if I was to say where he would get traded, I think San Francisco is honestly probably the best fit. Maybe New England too, but I know New England's got a lot of young receiving talent they like, so they would have to push someone out like a Javon Baker. I know who a lot of Bills fans liked once upon a time during the draft process, but they have some young guys they like, and that rookie slot receiver Efton Chisholm has been really turning some heads in camp in the preseason. So if I was to say where Myers would go, it's probably San Francisco. Does he ultimately go there? I mean, it seems like that most of these requests to trades is just the player trying to play hardball, but we have other situations like Micah Parsons in Dallas where it really doesn't seem like anything is going to happen anytime soon with that.
No.
But I mean, that situation,
that's an interesting
I would think
situation.
that he stays in Dallas, but I think right now it's probably closer to 50-50, but that's my quick take. Let's hear your quick take,
Danny.
Paul.
So my quick take is Daniel Jones and the Daniel's getting the start in Indianapolis over Anthony Richardson, which honestly, when I first heard Daniel Jones getting the start in Indianapolis, I was kind of confused because I was like, well, you have Daniel Jones, who's the veteran, and then you have Anthony Richardson, who just hasn't really at this point, even though he has a bunch of injuries over the last few years. And last year, obviously the moment last year where he tapped out in the middle of a play because he was kind of tired. So like I understand that him not getting the start, but I feel like the Colts should have gone with more of the trusting Anthony Richardson and giving him a second opportunity to say like, okay, we drafted you in like the top 5. Let's give you another shot and go out there and prove that you can be our starter. If it doesn't work by like week 4, week 5, okay, Daniel Jones, you're in, because we already know what you're getting with Daniel Jones. Is like just an average quarterback that's going to coast you through the rest of the season. And then there's Anthony Richardson, I feel like, who has higher upside.
For sure. No. See, that situation though, where they signed Daniel Jones, I actually thought he would be the week 1 starter just because I don't think Anthony Richardson is very good, to be honest with you. As good as he is with his legs and as strong as of an arm as he has, I just think a lot of it comes down to experience. Daniel Jones has, I believe, over 60 starts in the NFL, and Richardson, I believe,
matters,
has just about a season. But then if you go back to college, he started 9 games in college and not many more in high school, to be honest with you. So I think it comes down to experience. He just lacks a lot of the little intricacies that make the quarterback position such a difficult position to play. And I think if you want a professional quarterback, I think Daniel Jones gives you that. He's going to make a lot more of those layups where Anthony Richardson really struggled last year. Obviously, the big playability goes to Anthony Richardson, but you're also looking for consistency, and that's a Colts team where with Jim Irsay dying, the general manager and the coach, between Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, they may not have a ton of job security with new ownership coming in. Granted, it is his daughters, but the same loyalty Irsay had to both those football guys, his daughter may not have, to be honest. And it they're a team with new ownership that's probably looking to win. And if they're unable to win with that duo, I could see both of them getting fired if they don't make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this was more or less Ballard and Steichen trying to save their job, even though I think with Anthony Richardson, it was kind of the same thing for Ballard, which I've never seen a GM have such a long leash and not really have much results on the field. The last time they made the
Right.
playoffs was 2025 when Philip Rivers came to Orchard Park and the Bills ended up beating them at the last second. You
Right.
remember
I do.
they almost had that Hail Mary.
They did. They
Thankfully,
almost did.
thankfully it went incomplete, but
That was stressful.
it
Don't
was
remind
very
me.
stressful, right? But anyways, I think to the Colts it all comes down to experience. I don't think
Yeah.
this is the last we've seen of Richardson though, because Daniel Jones, unless he has a Sam Darnold type arc, or I guess you could say Baker Mayfield when he first came to Tampa,
Mm-hmm.
if the Colts struggle and they have a losing record at some point, I think they're probably going to go back to Richardson. Like, even though Coach Steichen said he Daniel Jones' leash isn't short, but if you get to week 5 or 6 and the
Mm-hmm.
offense isn't clicking and Jones kind of looks like the same quarterback he did last year, if Jones looks like he did in 2023, where he just manages the game, gives it to Jonathan Taylor, and doesn't make any big mistakes, but drives the offense down the field, I think the Colts could actually be a sneaky team in the
Mm-hmm.
AFC because
I
I
think
think they
so.
have
Yeah.
some talent on both sides of the ball. But we're gonna now transition to talk a little bit of Bills football. At least we're gonna recap training camp and preseason as briefly as we can. Hold up, let me pull up the what you sent me. Where to go? All right, outline. So we're gonna start off with the biggest takeaway from camp or preseason, and I would say right now is well, this can go into a later point. So I'll go positive takeaway here. We'll go to negative next. But
Mm-hmm.
positive takeaway, I think the defensive line looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think the depth looks good. Landon Jackson, I'd like to see more, but I think a lot of us expected him to be a developmental player. But
Right.
Sanders and Walker both played well. And I think if Joey Bosa stays healthy, that's going to be a huge piece to this year, as well as Matt Milano, who's looked great in training camp. So I think my
He has.
biggest takeaway is the defense should be much improved. That's a key word there, should, because well, I'll get to it later in our concerns.
Right.
But right now, biggest takeaway is that Joey Bosa and Matt Milano both look very, very good so far, which I think is a great thing for this Bills defense, which needs
Mm-hmm.
playmakers on both sides of the ball.
Did. Yeah, I think the defensive line. The Bills just made a roster move. The
Well, we'll
Bills are
we'll we'll, we'll get to that later. Let's
okay.
keep it with
Yeah.
training
I
camp.
was just just saw it on now. But I think the defensive line is a really big takeaway because, like you said, Joey Bosa looks like, Joey Bosa, like pre-healthy good Joey Bosa, because you get that healthy side of Joey Bosa and he can play, 18 plus games, including the playoffs. I mean, you're going to that really just rounds out the defensive line and how important we all know the defensive line is entering the postseason. Is you need guys like Joey Bosa to go in and finish and sack the quarterback and pressure the quarterback in the big parts of the game. I feel like the biggest takeaway here for me out of training camp is not entering this season with a James Cook contract dispute.
That's a
that's
great point
very
as well.
I feel very relieved that the Bills do not have this doesn't have this distraction entering this season, because this could be blown up in many different ways as you get onto the course of the season, and especially kind of like if there was no deal done entering the season, you kind of get towards the trade deadline is like,
Right.
then that becomes a distraction in the middle of the season when it really doesn't need to be much of a distraction. So I feel like getting that James Cook contract solidified, he has his money. Now he's focused on football. He can go back out and score, 16 touchdowns a season, run for 1,000 yards, and be the important piece of the Bills' offense. Where I was very, very worried on losing after the season.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean that's a great point. And if you know me, I said the whole time the Bills should sign James Cook. He's a big
Hmm.
piece of the offense, and we saw Brandon Bean make it a priority this season. But we've always known that Bean's moniker is to draft, develop, and retain his own guys, and he did that this year with all the signings. I believe we resigned 6 of our own guys, which is good. We got some guys on pretty good deals too, in my
Hmm.
opinion. So I agree completely about James Cook. You don't have to worry about him playing for a contract or anything this year. You have him the next 4 years, which I think is big because I think they're now that they have a lot of their core players locked up. Now's the time that they could really make that big move again, like push all their chips into the table if they want to get a guy like Parsons or someone else, a star receiver, or make a massive trade up or
Hmm.
something in a future draft. Like imagine if the Bills just kept acquiring assets to eventually go get Jeremiah Smith. I don't think it's gonna happen, but that
Oh
would be
man, Jeremiah
absolutely
Smith.
incredible.
I would love Jeremiah Smith in this Bills offense. That would be great. I mean, or even acquire assets to get Micah Parsons.
Yeah,
Why
that
not?
would I mean, Micah Parsons would be great too. But speaking about Bills players, the MVP of Bills training camp slash preseason for you was
I feel like I know who you might go, but I feel like I think I need to steal him. I think I'm
okay.
gonna go Keon Coleman.
Okay.
I think Keon Coleman was the MVP of this camp, and just the way he looked in training camp he was very limited in the preseason because obviously he's going to be one of the key pieces to the Bills offense this year. I feel Keon Coleman in the training camp and in preseason just looked like the Keon Coleman that we got last year, and he just looks good. And he just looks like a guy that Josh Allen can really rely on, whether it's over the middle of the field or a nice little touch pass on the sideline and Keon Coleman goes up for a contested catch. So I feel like that Keon Coleman is going to be used a lot this season, and he's going to be a massive threat to the Bills, to opposing defenses. And opposing defenses are going to have to look out for Keon Coleman this year. I really feel like last year was what we saw of Keon Coleman was good.
Mm-hmm.
It was great, and then he got injured. This season, we're going to get a
100%.
full season of Keon Coleman, and I feel like he can dominate this league this year.
Yeah. I'll be honest. That was probably my MVP. So if I had to pick another, just from what I've heard and what I've seen at training camp and preseason. Okay, I mean he may not be the MVP, but I believe what he's done, especially recently in preseason, has
Hmm.
just making some statement plays, showing out throughout training camp. And last year he was pushing for a roster spot. But I'll go Tyrell Shavers. I think
Hmm.
Shavers has done so much to prove himself that he's not only a great special teamer, but he can be a deep threat. He has great hands. He made some great plays in training camp, just keeping his feet in the back of the end zone for a toe tap catch in training camp. And then obviously that unreal catch down in Tampa Bay on Saturday night's game. So for me, I was going to pick Coleman, but I don't think Shavers is a bad option too. I think
No.
he's been making plays throughout training camp, and we'll get into it later. But I firmly believe that Tyrell Shavers should make the final 53. And lastly,
Hmm.
we'll talk about our biggest concerns.
Well,
Mine,
wait, Ben. I think we already know who the real MVP was. Josh Allen. Like that's obvious, right?
Yeah, I mean, but Josh Allen, you know what you're gonna get. Like outside of Josh Allen, someone else. I mean, someone else needs to step up. But yeah, speaking of Josh Allen, quickly, everything I heard, Josh has had an amazing training camp. He did struggle a little bit against Chicago, and he's obviously not going to be perfect every single practice, but
Mhm.
his accuracy looks great. He seems locked in. He's putting in that extra work at the end of practice with his playmakers. So, yeah, Josh has had a great training camp too. So, I mean, you can't obviously forget about the actual MVP.
The actual
But
MVP.
moving on to our 53-man. Oh, before we get to our 53-man roster predictions, we have the biggest concern on the Bills right now, at least through training camp and preseason. And mine, I don't think this would be a concern if it wasn't for a couple training camp injuries, but I have to go cornerback too because
Mhm.
with number one, Max Harrison missing so much time in camp, I think that was important reps. And even in preseason, like he hasn't really played live football since last year in college at Kentucky. And Trey White going down with an injury, it doesn't seem as severe as we originally thought it could be after he got carted off the field, but that is a major issue for the Bills right now is cornerback too. And if both those guys miss some time, you're looking at either Dorian Strong, another rookie 6th-round pick, which we can't expect him to be Christian Benford just because Christian Benford's elite. Just because he was
Mhm.
a 6th-round pick doesn't mean he's going to be Christian Benford. And Dane Jackson, did he look bad
Oh
in
my god, he
in
looked
in the
really bad.
preseason? Like
Mhm.
I well, we'll get to the predictions later, uh,
Mhm.
right after this, but I would definitely be disappointed if he makes the final 53. I mean, I get it. It would probably be because of injury to the two top guys at corner two right now, but to me, that is the biggest concern on the roster just because I think the defense is pretty good overall, but then you have corner two with massive question marks, and that's kind of been a storyline of the Bills the last what 4 or 5
Right.
years, other
Mhm.
than when they traded for Rasul Douglas, and
Right.
he gave him some really good play at the end of 2023. Last year, you saw signs of age with Rasul Douglas, but other than that, I mean, we were looking for the corner two for Trey for how long? Then Trey gets hurt in back-to-back years, and now that we found our eventual corner one in
Mhm.
Benford, we lost Trey at least. We're not sure for how long, but we at least for now, Trey's down, Max is down. So definitely some areas of concern right there.
Yeah, I feel like corner is a massive concern entering this, this now the next period after training camp, which is getting ready for the eventual start of the season. And we're still waiting on the news on Trey White. I feel like, you know, the build, I feel like I think McDermott said on Saturday they're still waiting on MRIs or something out of Trey White. So I think we're going to get that, the extent of his injuries either probably tomorrow afternoon or at least on Wednesday. So I feel sooner the better, the news on Trey White. But I feel like that's important. And I feel like outside of, like you said, Christian Benford, there's Trey White, Maxwell Harrison, who's still rehabbing his injury, and he's lost all of his training camp and preseason snaps, and then you
Right.
really just go into rookie Dorian Strong and a veteran in Dane Jackson. So it's very 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 weak after, Trey White if he has to miss some time and just, hope he doesn't have to miss any time. But then I'm looking at, safety.
Yeah, it's
Cole
another good
Bishop
one.
Cole Bishop, he was hurt early on in camp, and they've been both Bean and McDermott, all training camp and preseason long have been just saying that Cole Bishop just needs more reps. And he's going to be that safety that's going to be lining up with Taylor Rapp. And the first regular season game is a primetime game against the Baltimore Ravens week 1, who have some really good weapons on the receiving core. Did he get enough reps between the 3 preseason games and the remaining training camp that he got to make me, the Bills, and himself feel comfortable going out week 1 and being the safety next to Taylor Rapp. It seems like the Bills kind of still trust in Cole Bishop. They just need him to get reps, and hopefully he stays, healthy over the next week and a half, and he still gets those continued reps to be in shape to go up against the elite weapons of the Ravens in a few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I had to pick another position that was a concern, it would definitely be safety. So it seems like we're pretty much on the same page right there. But yeah, that's a situation I'm going to be monitoring all season, quite
Mhm.
honestly. And there are some intriguing potential replacements if Bishop struggles or does get injured again,
Mhm.
which we'll obviously talk more about safety in our roster construction. But that's bringing us into the main point of tonight's show, which is our 53-man roster projections. And I feel like some of the moves today, well, the Bills made it a little easier for me when I made my initial picks, but now I can confidently say that my quarterback projections, which were made after they cut Mike White, by the way, but I still most likely was going to pick Trubisky. But
Yeah.
my quarterback projections, I picked 2 quarterbacks. I did see the move you're talking about, which was Shane
Mhm.
Bussell got released, which I believe they'll bring him back on the
Oh, yeah,
practice
on the practice
squad.
squad. Mhm.
But I had 2 quarterbacks making it, Josh and Mitch. I'm not sure if
Mhm.
you had anything different.
That's exactly.
So,
That's exactly Josh and
I mean,
Mitch.
you can admit if you pick Shade, they
I
cut him
didn't know.
after,
I
but
made I
okay.
made this before the move, but that
Okay,
was also
right,
after the Mike White move. But yes, it was Josh and Mitch. I feel like that was already set in stone entering
sure.
preseason.
And I feel like running back is definitely pretty set in stone too.
Oh yeah,
Right
that's no
now,
change.
as good as Frank Gore Jr. has looked, the
Mhm.
Bills may be hard pressed to keep him on the roster, especially with teams like Houston having
Mhm.
injuries at running back, which is a shame because I really like Frank Gore Jr. not just
I
because
do. Yeah.
he's Frank Gore Jr., but I think he's actually a very good running back and can make plays at both receiver and
Mhm.
running back. I mean, maybe they have it in the cards to keep him at some point, but after drafting Davis, like if they didn't draft Ray Davis last year, Frank Gore Jr. probably would be on the roster. It's just they
Oh
already have
yes,
Ray
I think
Davis
you would
and
absolutely would
obviously
be on
Ty
the roster.
Johnson, the best,
Mhm.
the best third down back in the league. So I got Cook, Davis, Ty Johnson. I'm not sure if you had anything different.
Yeah, I have Cook, Davis, Johnson.
And here's where it kind of starts to get interesting. I've gone first the last couple times, so I'll let you go with receivers. I'm interested in
Mhm.
seeing how you end up predicting because the Bills they don't ever keep 7 receivers, and typically they usually just keep 5. So I'm interested to see if you continue that trend.
So here was my kind of thinking here is I laid out 5 receivers, and then I was like, "Okay, I still want Tyrell Shavers to make this
Hmm.
roster." So I think for the first time in a long time, the Bills are going to keep 6 because I feel like Curtis Samuel has to make the roster because, you have his contract to deal with. So like you wouldn't want to lose out on dead cap money if you decide to release him. And then there's Elijah Moore, who you also just signed. And it's
Right.
like, did he get enough time to really
Show
get
himself
in
because he
right,
never
suit
played
himself
with
in the
Josh in
Bills?
preseason. So I don't
Hmm.
think you can fairly assess his preseason, especially. I mean, he had a couple drops, whatever, but you can't fairly assess his preseason when he's wide open and Mike White bounces it 5 feet in front of him.
Yeah.
Like
A-
I
And
I think Elijah Moore is a big piece to the offense. If
yeah, I think
especially
so
if
too.
Shakir misses any time, let's all pray that he doesn't. But if he's hurt and has to miss the beginning of the season, they don't have anyone else on that roster who
True.
could really fill that Shakir
Hmm.
role, which is those quick hitters, those screen passes and hitches, stuff like
Hmm.
that. So if Shakir can't go for whatever reason, that I really think Elijah Moore would be the guy
Hmm.
that would take his role at least the first game or 2,
Right.
and
And
I
Elijah
agree
Moore didn't
completely.
look bad in the final preseason
No, he
game. He
didn't at
made a
all.
couple. He looked like a what he's supposed to be, like a solid wide
Right.
receiver 4 or 5 on the Bills roster, and I feel like he really showed that in the final preseason game. I think he also made like a nice spin move in the final preseason game. So he still has his athleticism, even though
Oh,
I think he's like.
absolutely.
So I feel
Yeah,
like the final roster spot in for the receiver comes. Feel like it comes down to if the Bills want to keep 5, Shavers unfortunately doesn't make the roster.
really. I
But
would actually
if
have
the
more off before Shavers if it came down
okay,
to 5.
okay,
But I
but
I
if
think
the
they go
Bill
6 too because
mhm,
I wanted them to do 6, but until I saw Sal's projections yesterday, and shout out to Sal, and I am kinda copying him, but once I saw Sal pick 6 receivers, I kinda figured that was more and more of a possibility because Sal is
mhm.
as plugged in tune with the Bills as anyone. So I like them keeping 6 receivers as well. And now tight end room, I feel like it's a lot more obvious. I got Kincaid, Knox, Hawes, and Gilliam.
Yeah, I put Gilliam in a separate category. I threw him in fullback, so I would have 3 tight ends with
One fullback,
Knox.
which is fair.
Yeah, so I separated tight ends from fullback, but I did have Knox, Kincaid, Hawes. I really also I also threw in a possibility. I don't think it's a big opportunity, but I really did like Latu a little bit in the preseason when I was watching him. He made some nice catches along the sideline, but I feel like Hawes brings the more of the productive side in the passing game, and especially kind of in that blocking range. But I also want to make a quick point. The last time the Bills rostered 6 wide receivers on the initial 53 was back in 2023 when they had Diggs, Davis, Hardy, Shakir, Sherfield, and Shorter. So
Okay.
been a year or 2 since the Bills
Yeah, but
actually
you could also
rostered
say
6
maybe the
wide.
last year or 2, they didn't have enough receivers that were good enough to, justify that, and now that Shavers can play special teams, I think if anyone's, position might be in doubt, it could be a guy like Codrington. Maybe they just decide that they wanna give punt return duties
Mhm,
to Shakir or Coleman, and then they want Davis and Johnson to handle kickoffs,
mhm.
but
Yeah,
moving Go ahead.
I think that's likely the way.
Moving on, offensive line. I did tackles and guards separate, but I'll just add them all in right now. I got Brown, Dawkins. I'll just go obviously starters. You got McGovern, Torrance, Edwards. So my bench pieces on the O line, I had Grable, Vandemark, Cedric Van Pran, Granger, and Kendrick Green.
Okay. Uh, the only difference of the Bills' offensive line is going to the only new addition to the Bills' offensive line this year is going to be rookie Chase Lunt. I feel like he had a really good preseason, and
Okay.
so I kept the original 5 of Dawkins, Edwards, McGovern, Torrance, Brown, and then I had Alec Anderson, Cedric Van Pran, Granger, Vandemark, and Edwards, and you just add in Chase Lunt onto the 53
Good. You
as
had Grable as well?
I did not.
Okay, so Tylen Grable was off Paul's. He was on mine. Guess we'll see. We also have some breaking news. We have a quarterback trade. I don't know if you saw that. Kenny
I did
Pickett
not.
goes to Vegas.
Oh, goes to Vegas to back up Geno Smith.
Yeah, because they needed a backup because Aiden O'Connell fractured his hand in the
Yes,
final
yes, he did.
preseason
Yes.
game. So definitely interesting move there. But moving on, let's go over to the defensive side of the ball. The defensive line, you can kind of pencil that in. I feel like
Mhm.
Oliver, Jones, Rousseau,
Yep.
Bosa. I have Carter, Sanders, Walker, Epinesa, Jackson, and Solomon all making it. And then we'll figure out how they play roster musical chairs when Ogunjobi and Hoyt eventually come back
Yeah.
from suspension. But I think those guys you can pretty much pencil in as the players who make the 53. I'm not sure if you had any differences there. I assume
I
no.
had
I
no
feel like
differences. I
that's
was just
probably
gonna
the
know.
most chalk you could
Yeah.
you could make out of all the position groups. Here's where it could get interesting. Linebacker. I had
Right.
5. Obviously
I
Milano,
also had 5.
Bernard. I have Buffalo Joe, Shaq Thompson, and how about Jimmy Charlo? I think he's made his way onto the roster with not only what he's done at Hard Knocks, but he's been great making plays in preseason, excelling on special teams, and I think he's the type of guy McDermott wants on a team, just kind of like a lunch pail guy who's all business. And I think the energy he brings is contagious. So I got Jimmy Charlo over Eddie Olafoshu.
Yeah, I had Milano, Bernard, Williams, Andreessen, and Carlo on my 53 for the linebackers. I feel like
Did you have Thompson too?
I did not know. I only
Oh
had
wait,
Milano, Bernard, Andreessen, and Carlo.
so you had
Or
4.
Char. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it's 5 with Milano, Bernard, Williams, Andreessen,
Oh,
Carlisle.
okay. I'm gonna have to cut someone off because I completely forgot about Dorian Williams. How did I forget about Dorian Williams? Okay, I'll get rid of Thompson. Thompson
Okay,
can
yeah.
go. Maybe
I
they
feel
keep
like
6 linebackers, but I
yeah.
would give it the spot to Charlo. How did I forget about Dorian Williams? He's one of my favorite players on the defense too. But okay, I'll agree with you there. That's my mistake. I can't believe I forgot about Dorian Williams of all the players. Now
The
here's
leading
where
tackler of the Bills last year, just not making the
100%
Bills roster.
started up until Milano came back. So corner, I had White, Harrison, Benford, Johnson. I had Ingram and Strong making it. I actually left Dane Jackson off the team.
Yes. I put it, Jamarcus Ingram was also a guy I was thinking about, but I was like also this is a very interesting spot. Outside of Benford, White, Johnson, and Hairston, like I feel like those are the 4 locks of the Bills cornerback room, and then everyone
Sure.
else is kind of was battling for the last spot. I feel like the last spot, the last I kept six corners on my roster, but
Sure.
the 5 and 6 was like Jane Jackson, Dorian Strong, Ingram, and then Jordan Hancock, and I was thinking about, okay, Dorian Strong is probably going to be one of the few with Ingram Ingram in the pod of guys that are probably going to be the last man out. And I was like, there's a few options the Bills can go. They can go the veteran route and bring back, Ingram and either Ingram or Jackson, or like they could possibly go both. Or they could just go rookie or they can just go the full rookie route and just go Strong and Hancock making the 53. But I feel like the Bills I don't feel like the Bills would do that. I feel like the Bills would go down the veteran route. So I feel like it would for cornerback 5 would be either Jackson or Ingram, and I feel like they would for some reason they would give it to Dane Jackson, so I have him on my initial 53. But if they flipped it to Jamarcus Ingram, I'm not going to be mad either way because I feel
So
like
who's your
Ingram,
6?
it would be Jordan Hancock because
Jordan Hancock.
yeah, because I
Okay.
feel like he brings versatility to the Bills cornerback room. He can automatically flip to safety. I don't think he played any safety in the preseason
Sure.
or at camp, but he has shown that he has the
No, he
ability to
did.
play safety.
I don't know if he did in preseason. I know in camp for a fact he played safety.
Mhm.
See, I found a way. I actually kept Strong, Ingram, and Hancock. I
Okay.
kept 5 safeties. I picked Rapp, Bishop, Hancock, Hamlin, and Cam Lewis, another player who brings versatility.
Okay, yeah.
I picked 5 safeties. Lewis and Hancock, kind of like those pseudo safeties, can
Okay,
also
yeah,
play
yeah.
corner, nickel as well. But I found a way to
Mhm.
keep them. I know when the Bills uh, signed Derek Forrest, there was some thought that, hey, maybe this is a guy who could get playing time and make an impact or contribute. But for whatever reason, I never heard his name at all through camp or really saw him pop in preseason. So I would honestly be very surprised if Derek Forrest ended up making the 53. And then obviously you got your 3 special teamers, Reed Ferguson, Brad Robbins, and Tyler Bass.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like I'm special teams is obviously set. The safety is Rob, Bishop, Hamlin, Lewis. Uh
You only kept 4
Lewis is
safeties?
obviously the interchangeable guy
Sure.
the interchangeable guy with corner and safety. Obviously, Jordan Hancock can obviously do that. and it ends up being
So,
six corners, 4 safety. But you can obviously split it 5 and 5 if you
so
wanted to.
what position did you pick more than I did? I'm trying to remember. We had the same amount on most positions. Was it O-line? How many O-line you had? I think I only had
I had
9 O-line.
I had 10.
10. Okay, that's where we get our difference. So I
Hmm.
ended up keeping 5 safeties. We both had 6 receivers, 5 linebackers, 10 D line, but I feel like they got a lot of guys that they like that they could put on the practice squad between
Hmm.
guys like Richard Guraj. They also have Clayton, who I think is a developmental piece. We'll see about Chase Lunt. You had them keeping
Hmm.
Lunt, but they have some other options between
There's
veterans
a
like
few
Dan
options for the
Feeney.
Bills
They got a
to
lot of
keep.
options, I think, as
Like
far as
with Okunjobi and Michael Hoyt both being suspended, you have to fill out your 53, and you get those extra 2 spots because Hoyt and Ogunjobi are both suspended. So like it really comes down to like, okay, in my roster, if you want to fit both of the 2 suspended guys, it probably comes down to how much time does Chase Lunt get on the field,
right.
guys like Jordan Hancock, or even a guy like a Jimmy Carlo, who these guys look like in the first 4 games of the season. Are they any use to the Bills going forward after the suspension? I mean, even a guy like Dane Jackson, if he's not he just looks absolutely bad on the field, looks lost. He could be the guy that the Bills also released to fit Hoyt and Ogunjobi, because I feel like Hoyt and Ogunjobi are coming back to the Bills roster and they will be rostered on the Bills. How the Bills construct that is totally up to them. I feel like if you want to do Hoyt, I feel like Javon Solomon has to be a guy that has to stand out, you know, because I feel like Hoyt and Solomon have kind of like the same traits. Is like they both can play, on the edge, but they can also fall back into the linebacking position and be a threat from that spot. So I feel like there's a lot of players in the Bills' initial 53, and at least on my 53, that they're still going to be battling for a roster spot within the first 4 weeks of the season because of the 2 suspended players.
Yeah, 100%. Real quickly, let me just make sure we mention everything. What else do we want to talk about? Does Shavers make the 53? And does that
Hmm.
mean the Bills keep 6 receivers? Yeah, we talked about that. Roster predictions to stand
Hmm.
out. I would say maybe Jimmy Charlo,
Yeah,
probably getting rid of both Codrington and Laviska Chenault. But
Chenault
why don't
really
we
struggled that final preseason
let's
game.
let's go ahead and wrap this up with some college
Yeah,
football predictions. You got 6 games.
I did. I jotted them
Perfect.
down right at the beginning of the show. So let's start on Thursday and Friday games are didn't stand out to me, so I decided just to start on Saturday at noon. Let's
Sure.
go let's go Syracuse and Tennessee. The
Ooh.
new the new improved looking Fran Brown's team. Does they look any good against the Volunteers of Tennessee?
This is an interesting matchup because both teams obviously don't have their quarterbacks from last year. And I like what Fran Brown is building up at Syracuse. I'm not a Syracuse fan, but I pay attention to them just because they're the local team to me, other than UB a lot. So I support both those teams and I cheer for them. But
Uh-huh.
obviously Syracuse is they're a Power Five team, whereas
Oh yeah.
Buffalo's a mid-major team, which I have
Sure.
nothing. I don't have anything against mid-major teams, just to get it out there. But as far as like on the national stage,
Mhm.
Syracuse, I definitely find if Florida State isn't playing, I find myself cheering for Syracuse. And I
Okay.
really like what Fran Brown is building there. And I think
Mhm.
I'm not sure if the situation with how it ended with Nico Imaleva,
Mhm.
I'm not sure if Tennessee's going to be ready to play week 1 because I think there was a lot of distraction and outside noise, and I think that's going to
Mhm.
carry over. And I just like what Fran Brown is building. They had some big upsets last year. I'm gonna call the upset of this game in Tennessee. or is it
It's a
at a
neutral
neutral
site game.
location? Neutral site game.
Neutral
Got
site.
it. But either way, I got Syracuse with the upset. I don't know how you feel about this one.
I feel like what Fran Brown is building in Syracuse is good. I think they're going to be competitive in this game, but I feel like at the end of the day, it's an SEC team, and they're going to find. For some reason, I feel like the SEC team is going to be a little bit stronger. But I feel like on the flip side, the SEC struggled against the ACC last year, and that's
Mhm.
a lot of the SEC losses came in the hands of the ACC.
Mhm.
So don't think it's going to be this one, but it possibly could be this next one because the number 4 ranked the Alabama Roll Tide has to go into a sold out Doak Campbell Stadium and face the Florida State Seminoles.
This is where I'm going to put on my homer cap and say Florida State gets the upset. We have a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator, and most importantly, a new quarterback and improved offensive line. I like our receivers on paper. We'll see how that works, but I think the defense and running game is going to be really good. And I still don't think Alabama's the same team without
Mhm.
Nick Saban. Jalen Milroe isn't there anymore, so they have to break in a new quarterback too. I think Tommy Castellanos has that big play potential, that electricity you see in guys like a Justin
Mhm.
Fields or a Kyler Murray. And I think he'll make some big plays with his legs, maybe a couple through the air. But I think in this Gus Malzahn offense, I think Florida State's going to be a sleeper team. I'm going to pick Florida State.
I feel like if Connor was here, I would obviously, because I know Connor would also agree with everywhere that you were saying, he would go Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not here right now, but so I don't think the jinx would work, right? Would the jinx still be on if I went Florida State here?
Probably not.
Okay, so Florida State, because I feel
Okay.
like if there was an ACC SEC upset, I feel like it would have to happen on an SEC team having to go on the road to play a team like Florida State, because going Alabama, like going to like another ACC school, like, I don't know, just throw another one out. Let's say they're going to Boston College or something like that, or even or going to a place like Wisconsin last year when Alabama went to Wisconsin last year. Like that's an intriguing matchup last year, but it was obviously the crowd noise in Wisconsin wasn't going to rattle Alabama because of the state of the two programs. I feel like last year, yes, Florida State had a down year last year, but they recruited well, and they also went into the transfer portal, and they really just rebuilt the program. I feel
Sure.
like Florida State has the abilities to throw in an upset here, and I feel like Alabama will will be the team that will be upsetted this weekend. Let's go to the final game on Saturday before we go into the remaining of the weekend games on
Sure.
On Sunday and Monday. The biggest game of the weekend is Texas, the number 1 ranked Texas Longhorns, going on the road to face the defending national championship champions, the number 3 Ohio State Buckeyes.
Give me the Longhorns. I think Arch Manning does his thing. I think this is going to be a revenge game for Texas. I think they go in to uh, whatever is it Horseshoe Stadium or Buckeye Stadium? I think it's Buckeye
Buckeye
Stadium, right?
Stadium.
They go into
Mhm.
Buckeye Stadium. They pull off the upset.
Would it be an upset if it's 1
Uh,
versus 3?
not
What's
technically from that
is it?
standpoint, but I believe Ohio
Is
State's
Ohio State
favored.
favored?
Yeah, I believe Ohio State is favored.
Because I'm trying to think of it. It's like it feels like an upset. Yeah, Ohio State's favored by 2.5 right now. So it
Yeah,
technically would, on the spread, it would be an upset. But 1 versus 3, yeah, and we'll call it an upset, whatever. Yeah. So I would also have Texas in this game as well. You know, I feel like the new regime. of Texas football is going to be led by Manning, Arch Manning, and hopefully this season it turns out to be a championship for the Longhorns. All right, let's go into Sunday's games. Let's start with the first game on Sunday, South Carolina and Virginia Tech. I think this is a neutral site game.
Interesting. I'm gonna go South Carolina. I think South. I know this is kind of like you can call it the Beamer Bowl since Frank Beamer used to coach Virginia Tech and his son Shane is now coaching South Carolina. But I think South Carolina is a team that a lot of people have high expectations for between Nick Harbor, Lenore Sellers, and I forget what the name of their freshman edge last year, but I know he's unbelievable. But I'm going to take South Carolina.
Yeah, South Carolina last season, if they didn't lose one game, I think was the game against LSU. If they didn't drop that, I feel like they probably would have been a sneak in team into the college football playoff last year. I feel like they're going to have a little something to prove this season because they were one of the three teams and through one of the three losses teams that were kind of discussed with Indiana and other teams like that in the college football playoff last year. So I think South Carolina would win that game, and Notre Dame having to go on the road to Miami in a independent team against an ACC team on Sunday night.
Yeah, give me Notre Dame. I know Carson Beck's starting for Miami, but I think Notre Dame is the better team here. I think Jeremiah Love's going to run crazy on that Miami defense. So give me the Irish.
I'm back and forth on this game because I feel like Miami, the home field advantage, at Hard Rock Stadium for Miami isn't like, Notre Dame having to go into a different environment. It feels like this is going to feel like a regular game for Notre Dame, even though it's a highly
And,
ranked game.
and they've won a big game there too recently. If you remember, they beat
Yeah,
Penn State there last year.
they did. So they kind of know the landscape of Hard Rock Stadium. So I think Notre Dame wins this game. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think Notre Dame obviously I feel like they are the better team. TCU having to go on the road to Bill Belichick's first game, and it's Monday night.
Yeah, I don't think North Carolina is going to be as good as a lot of people think. Like this is Bill's first year there, so I think you gotta temper your expectations for that. And I think TCU is a program that's 2 years away from a national championship appearance. And last year, I don't think they're as good as they wanted to be, and as good as Bill Belichick was a coach in the NFL. College football is a completely different ball game,
Hmm.
and has he how many times has he had to actually spend preparing or coaching against a high potent college
Hmm.
offense like
Right.
Sonny Dykes Horned Frogs? And it's
Hmm.
completely different college offenses versus pro style. And Belichick coming from the pro style, I think Sonny Dykes may have a few tricks up his sleeve. And even though North Carolina is home, I'm gonna pick the Horned Frogs.
Just for the fun of it, I feel like just for the fun of it, I'm going to take North Carolina. I feel like all your points are valid. They're great, but I feel like the story at the end of this weekend, you know, Bill Belichick getting his first, win as North Carolina's head coach, I feel like would be cool. I feel like I don't know, just something about it feels like it would feel good for college football. Just
Well,
one thing.
me, and obviously
Just one little
you were
story.
you were probably a lot younger when Bill Belichick consistently dominated the Bills,
Oh, I
but
do remember. Yeah, I do. Yes.
I can't. I mean,
Yeah.
that it's my Bills bias is showing, but
Right.
there
I get it. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
nothing would make me happier than Bill Belichick's first game in college football. His
He gets
debut gets ruined
loses
and
45
they
to
get
10.
stomped. And
Yeah.
then you could see him yelling at his girlfriend on the sideline if she's on the sideline. But I don't know. It'd be awesome. I'm a little
He
surprised
breaks
you.
the tablet or something like
Yeah,
that.
he probably will.
That would be cool. That would be cool.
I
Yeah, I
am a
get that.
little shocked. I'll be honest. I thought you would probably pick Clemson versus LSU. That might be one of the best games of
Oh,
the
I do.
week.
I did forget about.
It's all good. That I mean,
I saw it. I saw.
yeah.
I just forgot to put it. Let's pick it. Who do you have?
Oh, that's tough because from what I hear,
Which Death
Clemson.
Valley do you have? That
I mean,
this
it's
is this is
in
this
Clemson's Death Valley. I think
yeah.
LSU's the
Which one's
better
better?
team. I think LSU, well, I think they have the better Death Valley. I don't know if they're the better team. I think LSU is going to be good this year. This is a potential duel between potential number one picks in the draft, if you want my honest opinion.
Yeah.
I think depending on how Nussbus does or Klubnik, Garrett Nussmeyer, I think
That's my yeah.
I think either of them could actually end up being the top pick, especially if Arch Manning decides to stay for a senior year. But
Mhm.
as much as I want to pick the upset, I think going into Clemson's a tough place to play. This is week one. They're coming off a college football playoff appearance, and a lot of their talent ended up returning back for another year. And you got
Yeah.
LSU, on the other hand, they made some great additions through the transfer portal.
Mhm.
Varian Brown, Patrick Payton Jr. Like they made some great additions, but they're kind of breaking in a lot of new pieces. And the last couple years, like Coach Kelly has not done well in that week one game. Remember
He
last
has
year
not. No.
they
Yep.
they lost to Lincoln Riley
Yep.
and USC. The 2 years prior, he lost to Coach Norvell in Florida
He
State.
did. Yep.
So we just
I
haven't.
think he's
It's kind
0
of
and
like
3 in week ones. Isn't
yeah,
he?
LSU.
Like in
That
his
makes
3
sense.
years
Yeah,
or something
I
like
think
that?
you're right. I think this is fourth year at LSU. So yeah, I think you're right. And it kind of reminds me of the Cincinnati Bengals and their struggles week
Yeah.
one in the
Mhm.
NFL. And until it changes, it's obviously the Bengals have a much easier week one game than the Tigers do. But I'm gonna pick the
Mhm.
Tigers to win this game.
Which
The
tiger?
Clemson Tigers, that is. I mean, it would be
They're
easier
both
just it would
Do
be
you want the
easy to
purple one
just
or you want the orange
right,
ones?
right. It would be easy just to pick the Tigers because no matter what, I would win.
Okay,
But
yeah, there you go,
I'm
yeah,
going
just throw it
I'm
in.
going Clemson at home.
Yeah, Clemson, if that environment, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, if it was in Baton Rouge, I probably would pick LSU, but
Yeah.
it's not.
It's not. This is again the SEC versus the ACC. And last year, again, the ACC kind of dominated the SEC a little bit last year, which is weird because as the SEC is supposed to be the best conference, while the
Mhm.
ACC is getting here, just lapping the SEC last year in against the in head to head in the head to head games. This one goes to the ACC here. I don't know what about it. I feel like the pressure of a week one game for some reason for Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers just gets to them. You know, whether it's again both neutral site games against Florida State and USC, or having to go on the road in a different environment. If
Mhm.
this is a different this is a different environment than what I feel like LSU has played in the SEC. I really don't know. I can't really remember if they've played in the bigger environments. I think they went to. I feel like the Ole Miss, if I remember correctly, the LSU
It
Ole
was
Miss game was
LSU.
in LSU last year.
They did play in the swamp and they lost or no, I was
Hmm.
thinking Ole Miss. Sorry, I was thinking of Ole Miss. Maybe
Have
I
they
mean
gone on the road? I feel like they've gone on
I
the
don't
road
know
with
off the
Brian
top of my
Kelly
head.
to like Alabama or something like that, but I don't think
I don't
they've. I
I don't
think a
think they
lot of
went
their
on the
big
road.
games were at home.
Yeah, most of the big ones are at home, to be honest with you.
So going to Clemson is a different animal. So I think
Mhm.
I'm going to take Clemson in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you at all, but a lot of good football this week. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll still probably see some roster cuts today, but that was a really good first episode back. And just because of my new
Feels
work
good to talk
schedule,
ball.
yeah, it does. It feels great. But this is gonna be our new time going forward. I probably got to update our Twitter bio because I think it still says Tuesdays, but we're on Mondays from now on. We'll have more next week. We'll have our first NFL preview show,
Yeah,
Bills versus Ravens, and we got
Bills
some NFL
Ravens.
games to pick. But that should wrap up tonight's show. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, and go Bills.
And go Bills. See you next week.